There are moments in sports that ask for your attention, and then there are moments that demand it. They are not scheduled, not manufactured, not extended for television. They arrive only when everything else has been exhausted. 2 words. Game 7. For more than a century across arenas and ballparks, those words have carried a kind of weight that statistics can't quite measure. Not the accumulation of a season, but the distillation of it. Every possession, every decision, every mistake, reduced to one final night. Not tomorrow, no revision, just truth. Tonight in Cleveland, that truth belongs to 2 teams who have spent 6 games circling each other, trading blows, trading momentum, until nothing separates them anymore. The Cleveland Cavaliers, a team built on precision, shooting, steady brilliance of Donovan Mitchell, now stands 1 game from validation. The Toronto Raptors, resilient, unpredictable, carried by the all-around force of Scotty Barnes. He's already proven that he will not go quietly. They needed overtime just to get here, which is exactly the point. Because Game 7 does not reward comfort, does not recognize seeding or reputation or what you were supposed to be. It asks a simpler question. Who are you? When is there nowhere left to hide? The numbers, they suggest Cleveland. The moment suggests something far less certain. And that is why year after year, generation after generation, we come back to these 2 words. Not for clarity, but for drama. Not for answers, but for revelation. Because somewhere between the opening tip and the final horn, a season will end, and something unforgettable will begin. Greetings from our Temecula studios. We welcome you to the Hardwood Report. Tonight it's Game 7 in the Eastern Conference first round. The Toronto Raptors, 46-36, the 5th seed in the East, on the road against the 4th-seeded Cleveland Cavaliers, 52-30. The series is tied at 3 games apiece. Toronto's 112-110 overtime was just Friday night, if you believe that, and we arrive here with everything still unsettled. For Cleveland, the question is response. This is a Cavaliers team favored by 8.5 tonight, playing at home with no injuries listed, and with Donovan Mitchell at the center of everything. Mitchell comes in averaging nearly 28 points a game, along with almost 6 assists. And when Game 7 gets tight, the ball is going to find him. But Toronto has already shown it can live in tight moments. The Raptors are 7-4 in games decided by fewer than 4 points. And they just won one of those games 72 hours ago to keep this series alive. Scotty Barnes led them with 25 in Game 6. R.J. Barrett has been strong down the stretch, and even without Emmanuel Quickly, Toronto comes in believing it has enough size, enough shot making, and enough nerve to win on the road. The matchup inside is just as important. Evan Mobley had 26 for Cleveland on Friday, and his work on the glass matters tonight. The Cavaliers average nearly 12 offensive rebounds a game, and second chances in Game 7 are often the difference between surviving and spending the summer wondering what went wrong. Cleveland wants pace, threes and Mitchell attacking downhill, the Cavaliers average more than 14 made threes per game. Toronto wants to balance that with ball movement, and Barnes will control this game from multiple spots on the floor if they are able to find that rhythm. The Raptors have averaged nearly 28 assists over the last 10 games, and when they are moving the ball, they are difficult to load up against. So here we are, Cavaliers and Raptors, Game 7. Cleveland has the home floor. Toronto has the momentum. One game, one chance, one team moving on. More on this game in a moment, but first let's take you around the league. The Detroit Pistons blew out the Orlando Magic 116-94 in Game 7 and win the series 4-3. The headline is simple. The Detroit Pistons didn't just beat the Orlando Magic in Game 7. They ran them off the floor 116-94 and closed the series 4-3. And when you see a Game 7 decided like that, you're not talking about luck. You're not talking about a bounce here or there. You're talking about a team that knew exactly who it was and played like it. Kind of like what we saw last night with Philadelphia. This game was never really in doubt after halftime. Detroit controlled 76% of the game, built a lead as big as 25, and shot the ball at an elite level, 51% from the field and 48% from three. That's execution, that's spacing, that's confidence. And in a Game 7, that's rare because most of the threes, tighten up. And this one opened up, and Detroit was the reason why. Now let's talk about the Stars, because that's what the playoffs always are about. Paolo Banchero was sensational, 38 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists in the defeat. He did everything you could possibly ask for him. He showed you he's a franchise cornerstone, no question about it. They were the 8th seed. They were playing on house money. Paolo Banchero got him to the playoffs. Paolo Banchero got him to the Game 7, and Paolo Banchero put up a hell of a fight to almost win this game. In the first half, it was very close. Second half, not so much. But the issue in the second half is where Orlando ran into trouble because Banchero had to do too much. There wasn't enough around him to relieve the pressure when Detroit locked in defensively. On the other side, Cade Cunningham gave you a complete Game 7 performance, 32 points, 12 assists in total. He controlled the tempo. He didn't force it. He dictated it. And the difference is he got help. Detroit moved the ball, 30 assists as a team, got contributions across the board, and that's why the offense never stalled. The turning point, third quarter, that's where Game 7s are often decided, and Detroit came out and put the game away. Orlando couldn't match the shot making, couldn't keep up with the pace, and once the lead stretched into the 20s, the pressure flipped, right? Orlando started chasing, and that's not how they're built to win. So what does it mean? Well, for Detroit, this is real, right? 60 wins in the regular season, and now you back it up by a dominating performance today at home. So it's not a fluke, right? This is a team that believes it can go deep into the playoffs. So when your best player is controlling the game, like Cunningham did, and your team plays that connected like the Pistons did, you're not just advancing, you're arriving, I think. And I think the Pistons are right where they want to be. For Orlando, it's progress, right? It's progress, right? I didn't expect Orlando to be the 8th seed. I'll be completely honest. I had Charlotte in the 8th seed, if you want to be completely honest. So I had Orlando already out of this season. So it's progress. I'm buying Orlando next year. I think they'll be back next year. Okay? So for us, it's progress. For them, I think it's a reminder they've got the hardest piece to find. Right? A true star in Banchero. But they're not complete yet. There's work to do. They need another scorer and, honestly, another creator, someone who can take pressure off in moments like this. Because in the playoffs, if your top guy is carrying everything, eventually you'll hit a wall and zoom out for a second. This is a league right now, okay? Young teams, young stars. But the difference between winning and going home is depth. balance, and execution. And Detroit showed all three today. Orlando showed flashes, but not enough consistency. Final thought, and this is the bottom line. Game 7 is supposed to be tight. It's supposed to come down to the final minutes. This game did not. This was one team stepping onto the floor and making it clear they were better. The Detroit Pistons didn't just win Game 7. They owned it from the middle of the game on, and that tells you exactly where they stand right now in the NBA. And oh, by the way, they will play the winner of tonight's Game 7. And you don't get more honest than this. No trends, no projections, no tomorrow. It is the Toronto Raptors and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Winner take all Sunday night in Cleveland. And I'm going to lay this out for you clean because there are a lot of layers here. And if you're just looking at the line, Cavaliers minus 8.5, you're missing the story. Let's start with the reality. Cleveland is the better team on paper. 52 wins, elite scoring, home court, and the best player in the series, Donovan Mitchell, averaging nearly 28 a night. Add in Evan Mobley, controlling the glass and protecting the rim. And yes, this is a team built to close a series at home. But here's the problem, and it's a big one. They haven't put Toronto away. And I want to talk about that for a minute because this is where it gets interesting. Toronto wasn't supposed to be here. 46 wins. 5th seed, young core, still figuring itself out, right? And yet here we are, Game 7 on the road with momentum. And momentum matters because you saw it in Game 6. R.J. Barrett hits that shot, bounces it in, forces overtime, wins the game, and suddenly the pressure flips. That's not just a highlight, that's belief. That's a locker room saying we can take this. And don't overlook this one. Toronto has been battle-tested in close games. 7-4 in games decided by 4 points or less. That's not luck. That's execution, composure, and frankly, coaching. So I want to get into this because this is where Game 7 is going to be decided. X's and O's right here. Get your pencil and paper. Cleveland offensively, they want spacing, they want threes, and they want Mitchell downhill. They average over 14 made threes a game. If they hit that number tonight, they will probably win this game. It's that simple. But Toronto has quietly done something very important in this series. They've showed Cleveland late. You go back over the last 3 fourth quarters and overtime, Cleveland is scoring way below their normal output. That's discipline. That's switching. That's length on the perimeter. And you're going to see Scotty Barnes, my X factor, everywhere tonight. On Mitchell, helping on drives, initiating offense. He's the chess piece in this game. 18.7 boards, 6 assists a night. He fills every column. But more importantly, he dictates the pace. Now you ask yourself, how does Cleveland counter that? Well, it's simple. Don't let it get slow. Push the tempo. Get early offense. And avoid half-court stagnation, because if this turns into a grind, and Game 7s usually do, that favors Toronto. Cleveland has more talent, absolutely, but Toronto has more versatility defensively. And here's the key matchup. Mitchell versus Barnes and his length. Okay? Can Mitchell get clean looks early? If he does, Cleveland can settle in. If he's fighting for everything, well, now you've got pressure. And I think for Toronto offensively, it's going to be the concern. That's the big question mark. That's the elephant in the room because they've struggled late. Real struggles, really. In the fourth quarter and overtime of Game 6, they scored just 17 points in nearly 18 minutes. I don't think that's sustainable. So what's the adjustment here? Well, it's exactly what they said. Get the ball in Barnes' hands. Get it to Barnes, okay? Let him create. If he's not open, give it to Barrett. Let him create. It's not overcomplicated. This is not the night for fancy sets. This is the night for your best players to make the best plays. And R.J. Barrett, 21 a game over his last 10. He's become their closer. Not Barnes, but Barrett. right? And that's a shift, and Cleveland has to account for it. Now, let's talk about the big question in the room, and that's Brandon Ingram's health, right? Listed as questionable. Heel issue, probably not 100%. Maybe doesn't play. I haven't heard. So I'm going to assume he does not start. Okay? So he's out, or won't start. Manuel Quickly's out. That matters. That's going to shorten Toronto's rotation. That means more minutes for Barnes, Barrett, and the supporting cast. Fatigue becomes a factor. But here's the flip side. Short rotations can actually help in Game 7. Your best players are on the floor more. There's less guessing. It becomes a stars and role players game. Now, Cleveland's edge rebounding. They're one of the better offensive rebounding teams in the East. Mobley leads that. Second chance in Game 7? That's backbreaking. Toronto has to finish possessions. No leaks, no second shots, because if Cleveland starts getting 10, 12 extra possessions, the math becomes impossible. So let me give you the game script. If Cleveland wins, it looks like this. Mitchell comes out aggressive. They hit early threes. They build a lead. And they control the tempo. Crowd's going to get into it. It's going to be loud and raucous. Toronto presses. Cleveland pulls away late. If Toronto wins, it's the opposite. It's slow. It's physical. It's ugly at times. Defensive stops, long possessions, a very tight fourth quarter, low-scoring game at halftime. May not even be 70 points at halftime. Combined score. And in that situation, Toronto has shown they can execute. So, let's talk pressure. Because that's everything tonight, right? All the pressure is on Cleveland. They're the favorite. They're at home. They're the higher seed. If they lose this game, it's a failure. No way around it. Toronto, they're playing free on house money. They've already exceeded expectations. That's dangerous. That's dangerous. That's how upsets happen. So here's the pick, and I'm not dancing around it. I like the Toronto Raptors tonight, and I'll tell you why. They've figured something out defensively. They've proven they can win tight games. They've got confidence coming off that Game 6, and most importantly, they're not afraid of the moment. Cleveland should win this game, no doubt about it. But should doesn't mean anything in the NBA playoffs, especially in Game 7. And I think it's that close. I think it's physical. I think it comes down to the final possession. Barnes or Barrett have it. And I trust them just like Toronto does. And I think Toronto's composure right now is more than Cleveland's expectation. Final score is Raptors 103, Cavaliers 99. And when it's over, we're talking about a young team announcing itself and a favorite asking a hard question all summer in Cancun. Game 7, Mike Tirico, Reggie Miller have the call.